Everyone, welcome. I'm Max, Breakfast with Max. I'm very happy to have you all here today joining us. I have a very special guest with me, someone that I've known for some time, and someone that I consider as one of the best living artists in the 20th and 21st century. And it's a huge honor to have him here. Marc Yeats, welcome.
Hello, Max. Thank you for having me.
How are you doing, first of all?
I'm particularly well today. It's a nice sunny day, which always makes me happy. And I have survived lockdown and not had coronavirus or any of those things. So yeah, okay. Considering what's happening in the world at the moment, I can't really complain.
Yeah, and you're living in outside the big towns, and so you have maybe less concerns there than maybe in London or in big towns.
Oh yes, yeah. I think there's in the town that I live, there's 7,000 people, and it's surrounded by open countryside in all directions. So apart from when I go shopping to get food, which is when I do encounter people, the rest of the time I don't really see anybody very much. And when I go out walking, I go with my partner Mark, or I go on my own. Very rarely see anybody. And sometimes we go to the beach, and we're lucky that the beach close to us, Charmouth Beach, is it's never really very crowded, and sometimes it's hardly anybody there at all. So yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I'm missing seeing people though. I'm missing spending time physically with friends in the same space, talking. I'm missing traveling. I'm missing all the things that I used to do, which would break up my life. At the moment, it feels like January and February have rolled into one big month, which is still now July. Because although I've created lots of pieces of music in the lockdown period, and I've been extremely busy with that, I've been doing the same thing every day, seeing the same people, which is me and my partner, and bumping into the odd neighbour out when I go shopping. But basically every day feels like it's the same day, and it's gone on and on and on and on. So yeah, it's a bit strange.
So we had, I think it was 10 years ago, about 10 years. I don't remember exactly when, but we had already an interview together. I interviewed you with, it was for Extraordinary People in Ordinary Clothes. And you were so very, very kind that you gave me this piece of music that I was using. Maybe I'll be using it today in this interview, in the introduction. Yes, and we were lucky to interview you in your living room. Your living room? I think it was your living room.
It was both. We did some in the dining room here with this painting of mine behind us, and some in the living room as well, with another painting behind me, a different one.
Oh, you see, it was completely another time. I edited it for being in different episodes of 5 minutes, I think. In those days, you won't do anything more than 5 minutes because the idea was that no one is watching. Today, no one cares about 5 or 50 minutes, we just keep going and we let it be.
That's fine by me.
But I'm very happy to have you here today with us because, well, you have been up to a lot. You are really doing a lot with your life, obviously, but also with your art and with your studying. But I mean, you said that you have been doing a lot of music in this lockdown, but you never stop. It's just you may be doing more now, but you have always been working a lot.
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, it's true. I never stop, and I'm luckily one of these people who's never short of ideas for the next piece. In fact, when I'm working on one thing, it tends to bring about ideas for the next thing in a continuous sort of trail of events. But I think during the lockdown period, because everything else had stopped, all the distractions had stopped. My reaction to that was that I became hyper creative and hyper focused. And I know lots and lots of people, colleagues, friends of mine, struggled and still are struggling during the lockdown to focus and to be creative. And people have reacted to it in all sorts of different ways. Some people have been very distressed by the whole thing. Other people have gone into a sort of artistic malaise and they're not quite sure what to do. They feel listless, can't sleep properly. I've gone in the opposite direction. I've just gone, hey, look at all this time I've got, bam. And I think also because since 2017, yes, I've been doing a PhD and PhD in composition at Leeds University. And because I've been, my research is revolving around orchestral writing, and we'll probably talk about that in a little bit in a bit more detail. But anyway, about orchestral writing, I've had lots of approaches to write pieces of music for much smaller forces, for solos and duos and trios and what have you. And I've been saying to people, well, I can't do those at the moment because not until my PhD is over, because it's taking up my time, it's the focus of what I'm doing. And then, of course, the university shut down. The orchestras shut down, everything shut down. All my professional life, as it were, within the performing arts shut down. So I was left with all this time. So I thought, now is the opportunity to do all these pieces that I said to people after my PhD. But because after the PhD has been extended by another 6 months or so, then I've got this period of time in the middle where all the things that I need to do with orchestras and so on and so forth, I can't do because they're not allowed to blow or suck or bow or pluck or do anything that involves, being in the same room and making a bit of noise. So I thought I'd get on and compose all these bits I said later. So that's why I kind of did it.
Even with a mask, they can't do it.
You try playing a trumpet with a mask or a flute. No, unfortunately at the moment, the regulations are such that, no, it's not at the moment possible. I mean, for my PhD, I've got some experiments, some test pieces. They're proper pieces, proper big orchestral pieces, but they are testing certain theories of mine that I believe will work. But they involve anywhere from 60 to 120 players. Now, you're just not allowed to have that many people in a group. At the moment, it's like over 6 or over 30 if it's a wedding or something. So, and that's not when you're blowing things, that's just standing around. Mm-hmm. So I am, as they say in the UK, fairly stuffed at the moment.
It's like having your life in standby and you're just waiting for to start again, and just that you don't see when. It's really
there's I as for the future, I just can't. I don't know what to see at the moment.
It's better not to focus on it.
Yeah, it's too difficult, which is one of the reasons why I'm focusing on writing, because it's something I have control of. I can write music, so that's what I'm going to do. I can't think about who's going to perform it and when and all these other things. Although with these smaller ensemble pieces, they're all written for performers who want to do them and will do them as soon as they possibly can. But with the orchestral thing, until universities are normalised and open in the normal ways, I can't actually do that. And it's particularly frustrating because all the way through my PhD, I had been particularly careful to, I'm one of these people that if I've got a deadline for something, and the end of a PhD is a deadline, then I like to do all my work in advance of that deadline. And I like to finish some months before I need to finish, so I can then relax and look at what I've got and finesse it and make sure it's exactly, where I want it to be. So at the beginning of this year, I was at a point where I only had half a chapter to write on my thesis, and all the rest had been done, and which was the results section. And I had one orchestral performance booked for the 4th of May at the university with the student orchestra to partially test one of my pieces. So I was basically just needing those 2 small bits of information before I could write everything up, polish it, and then be ready to submit in September. But the lockdown came in March, and all of those plans were laid asunder. So I have what I would call a 90% finished thesis. And it's frustrating because, as I say, I've made every effort to be in control of the situation, so I wouldn't have to panic at the end, and I could be very relaxed and enjoy the whole process. And then the lockdown came, and that changed everything. But I must say that I am very fortunate because with my PhD, I also got a scholarship. So all my fees are paid, and I get a stipend. And that stipend runs from the beginning to the end of the 3-year period. So it was due to end in September. And that's to support me, because obviously a PhD, you can't really do anything else when you're doing a PhD. It is a sort of full-time concern. But I was very lucky to, I applied for and got a 6-month extension in my funded PhD. So I will be funded up until the end of March 2021, which is brilliant news because it means financially, although the stipend isn't a huge amount of money, it's a regular amount and it's enough for me to survive on. So unlike lots of people who've lost work and lost jobs, including my partner, who's virtually all of his choir work has gone because he works with groups who are generally over 60, they're in their 70s and 80s, and they're singing, and that's just not allowed now. So his work's just gone. Yeah. I've still got this income coming in. But the problem is that in the end of March, there's no guarantee that the orchestras will be up and running. So I could be in the same situation I am in now in 6 months' time. And that's the worrying thing. That's what concerns me. I just don't know what's coming in the future. So that was quite a long answer to a question that I can't even remember now. But anyway.
Can I? It's fine. Of course, but I mean, I've been following a little bit what you're saying about this, and you have a peculiar situation here in the UK for artists, and with the government not supporting really at the moment. They just have, they're doing nothing. They don't support you.
Well, they have that has changed recently.
Oh, right. I didn't get that one.
Yes, I think it was, let's just say last week, the government announced a £1.87 billion package,
right,
to support the arts, which is actually quite a lot of money, 1.87 billion.
Yeah.
And it's not sure quite how this is going to be distributed yet or who it's going to go to. Now, almost inevitably, it'll be distributed through the Arts Council, and most of the money will go to organisations. Yes. It's unlikely that independent freelance artists will actually see any of it. So whilst it's going to help keeping concert halls open, theatres, help to pay all those bills and different things like that, it doesn't change the situation around performance.
Yes.
So you've still got a problem that if, for instance, you're a concert hall or a theatre and you rely on audiences for 90% of your revenue, you're still not getting any revenue. So even though you may be able to pay your bills, your rent, and other ongoing costs, you're still not actually collecting any independent money until such times as the rules around social distancing change. And as for independents and freelancers like me, who write crazy music, who very few people perform anyway, and even less generally are interested in listening to, who are kind of on the fringes, it's even harder because most of the money that exists would tend to go to mainstream things because that's what happens with funding. So if you're a musician or a performer who's engaged with particular kinds of music, it's very challenging and very difficult to know how that is going to change. And also what could be broken, what of the infrastructure could be broken irreparably in the future. Because within the performing arts, it's such an intricate ecosystem of venues, funding, performers, practitioners, costume designers, lighting, composers, rehearsal spaces, you name it. There's just so many things that depend on each other. And there's a whole segment of individuals who will fall through the net. So we will have our big institutions will survive. The big showpiece institutions will survive. Some of the regional theatres will survive. But there are some that have gone bust already, and they won't come back. And from classical music's point of view, which I think is always in a difficult position for various reasons, although we were managing beforehand, I think after the coronavirus, after the lockdown has sort of decimated everything, we're in a difficult position. So yeah, it's not good news, and thinking about it is quite scary, which is why I think about writing music, because it's kind of
well, we'll have a lot to listen to after the lockdown.
Too much.
But at the same time, we'll see. I mean, from we are standing now, obviously, it looks like very, very difficult and scary. I'm sure that when we'll be in that position where things are going to start again and happening and organized and everything, something's gonna put everything together one way or another. We'll manage to make it work the best we can.
Well, I think all I can console myself with is that creative people are the best at joining the dots. And a lot of the fringe stuff that I'm kind of involved in is done on a whim and a prayer with very little money. It's kind of done independently because people love it and are interested in it. And I suppose that sort of thing will find a way. But the other big thing is that with the UK, I mean, not different to lots of other countries, but the UK has borrowed billions to support workers and industries during the coronavirus lockdown. I can't remember what the sum is, 200, 300 billion. I mean, it's just crazy, 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 crazy money. And at some point that's going to have to be paid back, which means increases in taxes, decreases in spending. And that probably means that the arts, again, will suffer because they always do. So it's, yeah, what?
We'll see. The UK has an advantage compared to many countries like Italy, France, all the Eurozone countries. The UK are in control of their currency. So when you are in control of your currency, you have much more ways to find solutions with your currencies. Eurozone countries are not really in control of the euros. So for the budgets, gonna be much more difficult probably. Let's hope that UK, Switzerland, the US, and other countries that have the currency sovereignty, that they can manage it in a different way. We'll see. Because I mean, money is not lacking. They have all the
No,
money they want.
no.
So it's I say it, it will be great if they use that money for the people. You know,
Well, it's a nice
it
idea.
exists.
We will see. We will see.
Yes.
You know.
But back to you, because this, I mean, we want to focus a little bit on you. Especially that I was thinking before that, first of all, I remind everyone that you're not using a screen behind you. It's really
Oh,
your, yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And I was thinking that having that behind you, you are even more handsomer. It's really magic setup.
you think? Oh, that's very kind. Well, I'm nearly 58 now, so.
Well, if I think that if we put, if someone goes and see the previous interview and the one now, that no one will see the difference.
Well, I think the previous one was a bit blurrier. But there are people that ask me if I have a painting in the attic, like the story of Dorian Gray, where I think the guy made a pact with the devil, and he has this painting in the attic that I can't remember. But anyway, he doesn't age, but he sells his soul to the devil.
Yes. Well, that's
the
one you have upstairs.
Yes, the horrible one.
Yeah, I've seen it.
The one that's like that. Oh dear. Well, what can I say? Creative living and a healthy lifestyle, and generally being a happy person, I think helps a lot with the way one looks, actually. I think if you're not happy on the inside, it's very difficult to look happy on the outside.
But I've worked with some people, and what what we say, what comes out from let's say shadow work or inside work that you do to improve yourself, is that when you work with your passion, when you are lucky and can have an activity that is your passion and not just go to work to make, to have a revenue, but you hate it every second that you are your 9 to 5 and
yeah.
When you are in your passion, you actually are able to live a much happier and life, and everything, your expression of yourself it becomes completely different, and so you are more smiling, happy, and through the difficulties of it, but you manage it in a much healthier way, with a smile.
I love what I do, and when I wake up in the morning, I think about the tasks that I've got, if they're creative ones, and most of the time they are, and I still get an excited buzz in the morning, thinking, I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and so yes, it's very fortunate to be like that. I think, because I know a lot of people that aren't, and I know a lot of people that struggle with creativity as well in various ways because of insecurities, or what's that thing called, the internal saboteur.
Mm-hmm.
That the voice inside that sort of says, "Oh, why are you bothering? You're not good enough. It'll never be good. You shouldn't do it." Blah 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 blah. And people that have that kind of nasty little voice that sits on the shoulder all the time, that just kind of drags them down. I am lucky, although I am self-critical of what I do, and one has to be self-critical if one is to develop. One also has to have an inquiring mind, to seek to do things differently, not necessarily always better, but differently, I think, and to develop one's technique as one grows older. And that's all very exciting. Those sorts of I love challenges. I love experiments. And that's why I did a PhD, because it's about research. It's about asking some big questions of what I do and saying, this is what I'm doing at the moment, but this is what I want to do. And I think I know how to do that. And I'm going to ask these questions, and I'm going to do an experiment by writing a piece of music that can answer whether those questions are right or wrong, if that makes sense. So that sort of research. How do I do this? I've got a problem. How do I get from this idea to that idea? How do I make things work? That to me is very stimulating and very exciting. So yes, I'm lucky. I get inspired. Perhaps I get inspired too easily. Perhaps I'm a bit like a child in a way.
That's good.
You know, I get excited by things, and I still get excited by playing with sound and playing with paint. It still gets my juices running, and that's lovely at my age, because it keeps me feeling very youthful, because the imagination knows no age. I think that's the thing. And the older I get, the more I feel in command of what I'm doing, but also the less I know, which is a strange sort of thing. The more I know, the more I find out, the more I realize there is to know. So it's like the more information you have about a subject, then the more you realize that there are all these things that connect to it that you don't know about. There's all this, how many people have written philosophy works over the centuries? How many philosophy works do I know? Hardly any. And yet it's all connected to creativity and music and painting, the way one sees the world, the way one perceives things. Anyway, I'm going off on tangents. But the thing is, at this point in life, and having done a PhD, and having learned an awful lot about myself with regards to what I'm doing, how I work, and its place in history, it just makes me realize that there's so many other things out there that I don't know, and I won't have the time in life to actually know them. You can't. It's too much. There's just too much stuff. There's
Are you sure? I think we're doing this forever. I live in forever, so.
Would you mean reincarnation forever?
Not just that. I think that we are forever. I mean, it's even in the Bible. We are forever. So I think you'll have more time that I mean, we're not lacking time. We think we are lacking time, but we don't. We have all the time we want. It's a game. It's like a game. You see yourself. Do you really see yourself old?
No,
I mean,
no.
If you're not in front of a mirror, how do you perceive yourself? Because when you are not in front of a mirror, you don't see yourself. You never see yourself.
I know. It depends whether my back is aching or not. If my lower back isn't aching, then I feel really young. If my lower back is aching and I groan when I get up and down from the chair, my back aches because I spend a lot of time sitting at a computer. That's it. And over the years, it gets a bit stiff, and I've got to sort of exercise to. I mean, I go out running and I lift weights and I do all that sort of stuff. So I'm not saying that I'm in any way incapacitated, but I think how young you feel, one of those things is to do with your health, definitely. And if you, I'm very rarely ill, luckily. I don't very often get colds or any of those sorts of things. But
Oh, but
if
you're English. I mean, you can go out in, and you take nothing. I do that, and 5 minutes later, I'm dead.
oh no, okay. Well, yes, very resilient, very resilient.
Yes.
But no, I don't feel old at all, really. And I'm shocked. I'm shocked when I think about my calendar age. And I'm also shocked when I realise the age of my children. You know, my eldest son Lucas is 31 years old.
And just married last year, was it, or two
The,
years?
the, the youngest, yeah, the youngest one, he's 26. He's just married.
Oh yeah,
And
in
Lucas is,
Italy, an
yes, that's right.
amazing marriage in Italy.
Yeah, they had it in, oh gosh, I've forgotten what it's called now, Ravello,
Mm-hmm.
just above Amalfi. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was very nice. Although the journey there, I will never do it again. I will never do it again. Thunder and lightning and torrential rain on a bus
Oh,
that went from Sorrento over to Amalfi on the coastal cliff road. Oh, goodness me, 500-foot drop. The Italian driver, I don't know what he was doing. The bus was leaking and pouring with water. There was lightning everywhere outside. People were very unhappy. Anyway, it was, but the wedding was lovely. And the Amalfi Coast is lovely. It's very beautiful, very striking. So we had a very nice time. But we also had to land at Naples in the middle of a thunderstorm. That wasn't fun. So
um, that's true. And when you say that about, yeah, you have had many lives with a lot of experiences, um, and you have had your art with you all the time, and that's I mean, and I've seen your work because you have a lot of your early work at home, and also the evolution with it. And when I look at your painting behind you, I know that you have the original, let's say, the picture, you have the original landscape, and what I found also amazing, your Instagram, where you put the pictures and your paintings, and you can see I, I'm in love when I see that, and then you can, when you have the landscape and your painting, and you see them and say, oh, I can see now uh, where it
it's,
comes from. It's the evolution, everything. It's uh, I think you're one of the artists that I've seen, and well, we had an art gallery, so we've seen some artists over time. Um, you're one that is able to go nearly everywhere, and I've seen that you said the other day that you wanted to, or today, that you wanted to paint a little bit more now,
yeah,
but you can stop for a while and pick it up exactly where you left it. You don't need to be one that trains all the time.
no, no. I think strangely enough, because there is a link between my composition and the painting, and I can't be specific about that link, but it is definitely there. And the music and the paintings are both realizations of different kinds of stimuli and inspiration and experience. As I say, it's not a kind of logical thing, a factual thing that I can say this means that exactly. But when I stop painting, I am then writing music.
Yes.
And the things that I learn when I'm writing music mean that when I start painting again, I pick it up, but I'll be in a different phase. I would have almost automatically changed in some way. The way that I thought about painting will have evolved a little bit further in the absence. And it's an odd thing to say, because you would generally think that the way that you progress is by doing and doing and doing. But in this case, with the painting, I tend to work in bursts, and then no burst, and then I start getting this itch. Oh, I haven't painted for a while, and I start getting this very physical sense of colour and playing with colour, and it's a tactile sort of thing. And it gets to a point where I've then got to do it. It reaches a head. But once I start, I find myself in a somewhat different place to where I was before, working always with the same inspiration, same interest, same love of landscape. But how it manifests will be slightly different. And it's as if I'm always on a journey to try and get to my ideal kind of painting, but I never reach it. It's always like steps and steps. And once I've got onto another step, I think, oh, that's good. I like that. I feel something's good with that. But then I can see what's over the next hill. And there's always the next step to take. And it's exactly the same with composing. I'm always aware, once I've achieved something, that there is something else that has revealed itself. The next challenge comes up. And I think that's why what I was saying about this continual inspiration and drive to do things. It's because I'm not content to sit in the same place and do the same thing all my life creatively, to produce the same kind of painting, the same kind of music. For me, I think it's good that you can see a lineage between what I was doing in painting in the 1980s and how that evolved into semi-abstract and then into abstract, and then the different ways that the abstraction works with landscape, and how it is abstract or impressionistic or expressionistic, and these things are kind of going round and round and round. And the same thing happens in music. And all the time it is trying to find that the perfect realization of the subject. But I know that that's absolutely impossible. Being human, I think it's part of the joy is the struggle of trying, and trying to get to that point of creating something which is absolutely perfect, bang on. But I'll never do it. And if I did, that would be very sad in a way, because then where'd you go after that? You know, if once you've reached perfection, well, you know, you might as well just give up, really. So there's no chance of me reaching perfection. There are lots of things that I want to do better and will do better, and then there'll be other things I want to do better. But it keeps a momentum, a creative momentum, and an inquiring mind, as I said. And doing the PhD was like a big opportunity just to concentrate on experimenting and trying to get things to work in a different way. And that's been great. It's been really great. There we are. Look, I've sent you to sleep.
No, I was just thinking how fascinating it is to listen to you talking about your work. How you can talk about it for hours, and I was having the impression that you will still be trying to really figure it out. You don't have it figured out. It's just happening. It's just happening. You know how to do it, but you don't know how you do it. You see what I mean?
No, I do.
You're really creating being. You're able to go somewhere in your being and transmute that into a piece of music or a painting, because you're able, it's there in you, but you don't know where it is just coming out.
It is. It's. I mean, with having done the PhD, I have written about 45,000 words, which is an awful lot, about how I write music.
Mm-hmm.
And because I had to examine what it was that I was doing and communicate that. So I suppose in a way the thesis is a bit like a recipe book. It describes various techniques that produce various outcomes. And I'd never done that before.
Mm-hmm.
I was aware, I was just doing stuff. But during my PhD, I had to analyze what I was doing it and make it more communicable. Now, there are some things that fall into the, yes, I can describe how I do that and what happens if I do. But there are always other things that have to be put into the intuitive box.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
There are always things that I cannot describe beyond I did it because I wanted to do it. And
Isn't that reason enough?
It's fine. No, I'm happy. I am absolutely happy with that. Absolutely happy with that. But the thesis will sit between a lot of stuff that is describable and certain things that are not describable. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, it's perfectly legitimate for somebody to create something without being able to describe how or why they are doing it. Equally, there are some people who use particular techniques that can describe a huge amount of what they're doing in technical terms. But you always come down to this point, I suppose. The big question is, why do you do it? And why do you make that choice? And sometimes at the very beginning of processes, these are the questions that you do not ask yourself. You just feel it. You just do it intrinsically. And I'm not saying that there's any mystery about that, because to me, it's part of my very being, in the same way as putting a fork in my mouth or breathing or anything else. It just feels completely normal. If I go out into a landscape, I can imagine sounds to go with it. I can imagine the gestures I would make if I were going to think about drawing it or painting it, because there's a kind of connectivity that exists between me and it that comes in through my perceptions and my senses. And somehow in here, I process it in a particular way. And I'm not always aware what those processes are. These are the intuitive things. And then there are other things that have to be worked out within what I would call technique, which are describable things. But it's a continuum between the intuitive and technique. What is an unknown response to a stimulus and what is a known response to a stimulus? And there's a sort of seesaw between these two things. And it's sometimes very hard to say where you are on that seesaw. And it's eternally interesting. Trying to describe intuitive things is a huge, huge, huge challenge. Not least because as human beings and as creative people, we program ourselves in ways that we don't even realize when we do things. When you're painting, there are certain gestures that you will do that become very personal to you. You don't even think about them. They're like a kind of muscle memory. They're built in and you just do it. So if I'm going to draw a landscape, I look at that. I don't even need to look at the paper. It's just like, it just goes right the way through. It's intuitive, but it's also kind of like self-programming. It's like responding to things so many times that you've created a repertoire of responses that you don't need to think about. They're entirely yours.
Can you walk?
Can I
Walk.
walk?
Yes. Can you walk?
How do you
Not
mean?
now. I mean, can you walk?
Not easily.
But I mean, you can walk.
Oh yes, yes, yes. So, sorry,
Do you question it?
Second.
Do you question it?
Um,
Or do you just stand and go?
I will stand and go. Yes.
Yeah. Isn't it the same when you paint? You just paint? I mean, when I say you just paint, it's
Yeah.
understand me. It's not, but you know, it's I am that you
It's
express
yeah.
without being thought.
I would say again that there are the two sides to it. There are certain things I'll do when I'll paint, which I will purposefully try not to think about and just do gesturally, physically, which is like walking. Of course, walking is a hugely coordinated and balanced act. Just the same as looking at a landscape, stuff going in through your eyes, going in here and coming out as gestures. But then there also comes a point with an artwork where you look at it and you think, that's not right. It's not there yet. It's not this or that. And then you have to analyze it. You have to think about it. And you have to use different skills, which are more to do with technique. So as I say, for me, it's always a marriage between what is intuitive and what is technical. But the lines between those two things can be very, very blurred. And during a PhD, I've had to think about these things. I've had to analyze them and I've had to separate them out. I haven't done a PhD about painting. So a lot of the things that I do in painting are much more mysterious to me than the things I do in music, for obvious reasons. But then there are still lots of things I don't understand why certain sounds make me feel like they do. I have no idea why I have particular preferences for types of textures, and I can't analyze those things. It's just too time consuming and too difficult, and I don't really want to or need to. So there's always going to be an element of mystery for me about the mechanisms that are working within my own psyche. And that's, as I say, that is absolutely fine. I don't need to have intellectual control of everything. There are these things that come through the body that are automatic responses that I don't think about, which akin to, yes, if you're walking and you trip over a stone, your body will right itself. You don't think about that, it automatically adjusts. And that physicality, I have that kind of physical relationship between color and texture in paint, and I have that kind of physical relationship with sound as well, which I find a very, very physical thing. So yeah, that's kind of how I work. It is a strange balance between the two, but there'll always be things I just don't understand, and that's, you know, that's just fine. You know, if it when my thesis is published, once I've got my PhD, hopefully, and it's out there, then a lot of what I'm doing at the moment will become clear with regards to composition. But there are still, as I say, there are questions I can't answer, and we just have to say, okay, that's fine, that's intuitive, off you go, you know, enjoy. So
I love listening to this. Is poetry. It's like poetry. It's so amazing. Yes, and where were we? I was just lost in your words.
I don't know where we were.
Listening to you talking about your work is so beautiful.
Well, I'll tell you. I mean, I can't remember where we were, but I can tell you something that that in this period that I have done, which I'm very proud of, very happy with, which is released a CD of piano music with a fantastic pianist called Ian Pace, and that's particularly good because I wrote a lot of piano pieces in the 1990s for various people who all looked at them and said, "I can't play that. It's too hard. It's too this. It's too that." And then Ian plays them brilliantly. We had to crowdfund for the CD, which I mean, I am. Well, as you know, you were a contributor to that. It was. It's a great shame that I have to crowdfund, in as far as there are other composers who get record companies who will just record their stuff. And it was funny that in a very, very good review of the CD that came out recently, the person that wrote the review said that even, well, he described me as being of note, a composer of note, let's say. And then he said, but even this album had to be crowdfunded, which is like saying, well, you know, when you've got somebody in this position writing this kind of music, why isn't it being recorded by a record company? And it was a struggle to get all that money together. And we did it eventually, produced a really good album, and I'm very proud of it. It's my first, second solo CD. So yeah, it's good. And I want to make lots more.
Yeah.
And I've got to raise lots more money. It's terrible. So, you know, this is one of the other sides of composing, which is different to painting. With painting, at the very, very least, you can stick a picture on Facebook, or you can do something and say, look, this is what I do. With a piece of music, if it hasn't been performed, it doesn't exist. And this is where recordings are essential as a way of getting your music out there. Because you get far more people buying recordings and listening to recordings than you do going to live concerts. But the trouble is, you've got to find this chunk of money, you know, 5,000, 4,000, 8,000, 10,000 pounds, to pay the musicians to do the recording. And then, you know, it's not something I ever make any money out of, but the notion of having CDs is a very good one. So I was very pleased to have achieved that, and to have had good critical reviews with it. So that's something else. I think the two biggest things that have happened since speaking to you last would be the PhD and the CD, plus, God, many pieces of music.
Many things, but because when we spoke last, you were in the middle of sad scene.
Oh yes.
And the first episode we did was about that, by the way, but a couple of years later, it was London 2012, and you were involved for the artistic.
That's right, the Cultural Olympiad.
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean, it's goes on, and when you live where you live now, because the first time we came to visit you, you were living on the sea
in Charmouth. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And then you moved, but you got also involved in your community with many things, and I mean, you always working, doing things, and involved in that. Yeah. And then amazing activities, and you go running every day in the middle of all of that.
Well, yes, one has to keep the body to counteract all the time I spend sitting down at the computer.
Yes.
Going out. I love walking. Walking is a huge pleasure. I love walking.
But you have amazing landscape.
Yeah,
well, yeah. You know, your painting.
Oh yes. Yeah, no, well, I'm very, very lucky living here that there's just so many places to go to, and it's just utterly beautiful, and lots of places I want to go to and explore that I haven't been to yet. So there's no end of that ahead. But
Uh, I think, because when we came and then we visit and uh, what I find amazing when you are outside of London and you discover England, the real England, the vast majority of England, is that it's completely a different country, another country. It's green, a lot of green, a lot of landscapes, and then you have this amazing beaches and the Jurassic. What is it?
that's it,
Jurassic Beach.
Jurassic Coast. Yeah,
Yeah, a coast. Yeah, Jurassic Coast. And it. I can see from coming from the outside. I can see how inspirational it can be, and how for an artist and because I mean when now I think of England, I don't think about London. I think more of your side uh, of England.
yeah, yeah.
You know.
Well, London is only a part, a part of it. I think the diverse landscapes that exist in within England and in Wales and Scotland, within this rather small area, are tremendous, and yeah, it's very green, very beautiful. Lots of old buildings, lots of windy footpaths. It's got a huge amount of character, and I
Mm.
think because people have been living and working in these places since thousands and thousands of years ago, since Neolithic times, and we still live among the relics of those times with the hill forts, stone circles, and burial chambers. A lot of the routes that we walk now are really old walking routes. So there's a huge atmosphere and character in England, and I love it as a creative person. It's kind of like my lifeblood. So I could never imagine living somewhere else in another country, um, from that point of view alone, because I feel
Inspired.
completely attached
Yeah.
to the landscape. You know, it's it's very special to me. So yeah, but London's good for some things, but I was born there, of course. But no, I'm a couple of days for a visit. That's fine for me.
Well,
I
when you have the habit of living outside and in the countryside, and being surrounded by nature, and you can't you London, it's too big. It's too.
It's big.
It's become difficult to stay and live there. Well, I see we have a forest just around the house, so we are in the middle of town, but we have a forest just outside the house. So it's being in town but also being outside, so we have both
Mm.
aspects here. But I have to say, if we didn't have this, it will be much more difficult to stay here and while living, being well in this place. So I mean, come on, you were here, so you know
Yeah, yeah.
what I'm talking about. um and but back to you. um
There can't be anything left of me now.
oh, there is always more. No, it's just, it's just a pleasure, because um it's I have, I listen to you, and at the same time I have the image, because I was there, and we've seen you working and in your element. So I have both images, and I have also a image of you in London.
Oh yes, yes.
So it's interesting because it's completely different situation and
Mm.
environment. Um, and then I'm laughing thinking of coming to visit you and go to Bristol. Anyway, that's something else.
Yes, well, London, I have to wear slightly neater clothes when I go to London.
Yeah.
But you see that I do enjoy being with people. Um, and I gave a talk about my music. I think it was about an hour and a half long talk at Manchester University about a year and a bit ago. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. Really, really got off on it, just talking to students and having lots of questions coming at me. Um, I like working with people, and I like being with people, but I also need to spend large amounts of time on my own because of the kind of work that I do. But I don't find it difficult to switch from one to the other.
Mhm.
You know, I think I'm a very kind of self-confident person. So if I go into a room of people I don't know in a meeting in London, I feel perfectly at home and I establish myself very, very quickly. But then I come home and I sit on the train and I get off and I think, oh, it's nice to be home. And my heart is really in green places, places where in the countryside, that's where I'm happiest. But most of the music that I make takes place in the cities. So I need to go to the city every now and then for concerts and different things, and meeting people and going out for a meal and all that sort of thing. I'm usually very, very disturbed by how expensive it is, certainly in London.
Yes.
Crazily expensive. And I also have a very good time talking to people. That's one of the things about being isolated when you work. You kind of forget that there's all sorts of other things going on out there. And then when you meet new people, yeah, it's great. It's great to converse and chat and discover about what other people are doing, and it can be very exciting. And sometimes you can form a collaboration, or you can make an opportunity for something new to happen. I mean, I must say, I do find social media is pretty good for that. That because I'm in a bit of a sort of niche area for composition, I get approached by sometimes quite niche performers who are looking for particular things, and social media is very good for that. And of course, I can remember the time before social media existed, and when I lived on the Isle of Skye, which was a long way out from anywhere, 150 miles away from the nearest town, the nearest airport. Everything had to be sent by letter. Mm-hmm. If you wanted somebody to see a piece of music, you had to send a score in the post. You would talk to people on the telephone. There was none of this instant file sharing or instant MP3 emailing or linking to drives where you've got all sorts of information and documents and photographs. It was bloody hard if you lived in a remote area, as I did, to have a career, because any form of travel away from the island involved days and hundreds of pounds. And you never got that money back. It was just a loss. To go anywhere was a complete loss and very time consuming. And now I can just send anything anywhere in the world very easily. It's amazing. And I think as a composer, I'm very much into that, into using those technologies to connect with people and to make things happen. So I'm a bit of a social media whore, as they say. I mean, not so much from just posting selfies and things like that, although I do that, but posting information and posting about work And I get a good engagement with that. As I say, it's very specialised. But yes, I would be lost without that connectivity. Absolutely lost.
Yeah, your Instagram is I mean is I'll put the links. It's amazing. The pictures you post and it's you. Suddenly it's 10, 20 pictures in a together that you post and
Yeah,
but it's I love it.
I don't do it every day. I don't. I think I sort of think about Instagram posting. I suppose possibly once a week, twice a week, depends what I'm doing. But yeah, and then I'll suddenly post a batch of things.
Yes,
Um,
I think it's for someone that enters in your world, in your artistic world. It's speaking of volumes. It's amazing to see it because it's images and it's you. It's completely you.
yeah, so it's everything. It's landscape photographs, it's drawings, it's paintings, sketches, manuscript, me doing things in places, me standing there going. It's yeah, it's just it's kind of very human and human and sort of part of the stuff that I do. If I go out on a nice walk and I take photographs, I'll select the best photographs and put them onto Instagram. Yeah, I think it's in some ways it's a little bit like telling stories.
Yes, and there is another thing that I wanted to talk about is your Patreon. Because I wanted, we didn't discuss about this, so it's me doing this. You didn't ask. I just want to, but I wanted to invite people to go to your Patreon because I think that it's an amazing idea. Because I mean, you're an expensive. I mean, your painting are not for nothing. They have a price, which is absolutely it's worth it. But obviously in a lump sum many people it's but if you go on Marc's Patreon you have the opportunity to pay the painting in installment, let's say, and you can pay yourself a amazing Marc Yeats or many amazing Marc Yeats.
The more the better.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think I wanted to do that because I think, you know, many times I hear people, I would like to buy this painting, but it's too expensive. I cannot
Yes.
that kind of money in just one time. Is it possible? I remember in the gallery, is it possible to, well, you have to see with the artist. The artists have to decide whether it's a, and with Patreon, that's perfect. It's
Yeah. No.
easy,
That,
and so
that.
go and see it. I'll put the
Thank
link
you.
too.
Thank you. That is exactly why I did it, because people said, "Oh, I would love one of your paintings. I just can't afford it all in one lump." So I set up these different tiers. You know, really not very much money per month. The lower ones. You know, it's like 2 or 3 coffees out. Is the amount, and you do it over a year, and you get a painting. And the more you put in, the more, you know, you can get one bigger painting, or you can get several smaller ones. You can do whatever you like. And there's a website of paintings that you can then choose from, up to the value of whatever you've put in. And it seemed like a sensible way of doing it. So your people are getting back exactly what they pay in. It's not money that's being lost. It's like a savings account that you then cash in for painting. So
and that's good for you, because that's the problem that many artists have with this, you know, with installments, is that you don't know whether you're going to be paid or not.
Yes,
Agree with that. With Patreon, the good thing is that you receive the money, and so when you have received the money, you deliver the painting, and it's not the other way around, or you know, so that you have the insurance of being paid. Which,
absolutely. And it's useful to have a monthly sum.
yeah,
That's the other thing. It's very useful rather than just having a lump, nothing, a lump of money, nothing. It's nice to have an even. So yes, I mean, I do hope people will invest in that way, because it's I think it's a neat idea. I think it's a neat idea. So
and
yes.
it's worth it's yes, and uh, I'm not making it up. It's really, I think that to have your paintings in one's walls is, I mean, it's an amazing gift that one can do to oneself, because and I'm not overstating it. It's that it sounds like I'm overstating it. No, Marc Yeats is a true artist and a quality artist, an amazing artist. You are really buying a piece of art. You are really buying something that is beautiful, amazing, and everything.
Well, thank you. And I haven't paid him to say this at all. He's done it completely.
You'll give me 30%?
That's a lot.
Yeah, I know. No. But I mean, I think that it's important to support our artists, because um, I see both sides, because I have my everyday job, and then with my passion, communication, and I have I do what is my passion every day outside of work, and I realize that that side of everyday work, the 5 to 9 work, it's not really productive. It's not really, you do it because you have to do it. When, as I was saying before, when you are able to do it from your passion, but especially when you are creating, really creating this beauty, this art, this all, that's what is really lasting, what is really bringing something in in our awareness, in our consciousness, in our so I think that we have to revalue this aspect of of us, art, artists. That's the beauty of life. When you go anywhere, visiting towns, visiting whatever, the best part, especially in certain countries that are ugly, when you go into towns and this kind of thing, that they're not really, that's sometimes it's sad. But when you go in art galleries, you go to the museum, you go, there you have it. Or you go in historical sites, there you have it. It's the beauty. It's that's what it's really us. The
Yep.
5 to 9, no, to 9 to 5. Sorry, uh, I'm making it even bigger than it is. All right, okay, but no one's really loving it.
Yeah, yeah.
You
No,
know,
I I agree. I agree. But then I would agree. So yeah, I've never wanted something for nothing. I want to survive through selling my work, selling my paintings, and being commissioned to write music. I don't want to have grants and handouts. I want to be self-sufficient. But it is hard. It's really hard for all sorts of reasons, because the costs of living are very high, and getting your work out there, getting people to know that it's, getting the right people to know that it's there. There are always lots of people who will look and say, "Oh, that's lovely," but would not necessarily be interested in always buying something. There are then those people who are interested in buying something but can't quite afford it. So a plan like Patreon works really, really well. But there are people who are interested in buying art, who have art around them. It's part of their life, their acquisition. They will think of buying a painting instead of buying another widescreen television, for instance. They'll do that. And those are the people I need to connect with. But that's the difficult thing to do, because I don't know who those people are. They don't know who I am. So it's a case of trying to bring those two things together to make it into a business success. And with the music, there's a slightly different problem. It's a harder sort of thing to describe, but it's a challenge in other ways. Mainly because lots of the money goes to the same kinds of people in music, and there's a whole kind of class system of people who have been educated in the same place, who come from the same kind of backgrounds, who are generally quite wealthy in their own rights, who dominate the music scene. They dominate the administration of music, and they do favours for each other all the time. And it's very hard for composers who are outside of that to break into it. And I'm not alone in that. There are lots of others who are in that situation. But that's a battle I have to fight in another way. The thing about painting is a person can own a piece of painting. They can have it. And it's very simple. It's a simple transaction. Somebody likes something, they want to have it in their home, they part with money, they have it. So in comparison to music, where it's got to be commissioned, it's got to be performed, and nobody really owns it. It's quite a different sort of thing. So it's always been my hope, really, that I could, through the painting, I would earn enough money just to keep me going so I could do the music as well, without having to worry so much about making money from music as well. In reality, I want to make money from both of these things, so that my abilities pay. So I can pay my way. In the same way as a carpenter or whatever, they have skills, they want to be paid. So, as I say, fingers crossed, we'll see where we can get with that.
Absolutely. And I mean, it's absolutely worth it. It's, and that's what I personally feel. It's that it's a two-way thing. I think I'm worth it. I'm worth to have such a beautiful piece of art, and I think that the piece of art that you create, it's worth to be owned. To be there, to be, and so why not?
Why not indeed?
All right. So.
I'm going to have to go and cook some food.
Yes, I was going to say that.
It's my turn tonight to cook.
Yes. So I just wanted to say thank you for coming. And well, anything that you want to add, please feel free.
I think we've covered a lot of things.
Yes, absolutely. It doesn't look like 1 hour. We have been covering a lot. And so I wanted to thank you for agreeing to do this. It's amazing. It's also great to see the evolution, the change, how everything it's completely different from 10 years ago. And well, the painting is still there.
Yes.
And I love it. But well, you know it. It's how many? If I remember correctly, that's 3 of the same series. There are 3. I remember the yellow, the red.
Oh, there's more than 3. I think there's
the stillness in movement.
Yeah, I think it's about.
I remember correctly?
Yes, stillness in movement is absolutely correct, and I think there are about 8 of them.
8. Yes, I remember the red one, the yellow one, and that one. Yes.
Blue one. There's a green one. There's a big. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Well,
There's a lot of them.
I love them. Anyway, again, thank you so much.
It's a pleasure, and thank you for inviting me to have breakfast with you.
Yes, and I want to thank everyone that is watching. Whenever in time, you know that it's always in the same moment. It's now that you are watching. So as we are creating it, and everyone that has been joining in, thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Stay